Hey everyone, welcome to this installation of our vlog for demystifying data. Here's Gord and Brian.
I'm Gord.
You're
That's
Gord.
Brian.
I'm Brian, oh yeah. I'm terrible at introductions. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about the sunset of Google Analytics. Universal edition, I guess.
I
Universal
love
Analytics.
sunsets.
Do you?
Yeah.
What's your favorite sunset?
To the west. I like when it goes to the west. Yeah.
Does it only go to the west? Or?
Yeah. I like them better than sunrises. Do you know what makes a good sunset?
I have no idea.
Clouds. If you don't have clouds, it's going to be, that's a nice sky. But if you have clouds, it like just pops it out there.
Nice.
Especially like medium clouds and high clouds. And like different depths of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. Where is your best sunset?
Probably at my cabin.
Your cabin.
Northern Ontario.
Beautiful.
Canada.
Canada.
Eh?
Hey, yeah. Well, we're in Canada right now, but again, we have people all over the world and offices in Denver and in Seattle.
That's right. So we're talking about the sunset of
Universal Analytics.
Oh yeah, not Google Analytics.
Not Google Analytics. That's not going away, I don't think.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
No. Okay. Good. So the past, I guess. Should we go through that first?
Yeah. Let's talk about it. It's on the slide here.
Okay.
Sun's up high.
Sun's up. All right. So we'll get to sunset.
We will. So Urchin was acquired by Google in 2005. And Urchin, is that a sea monster?
I don't know. Is that like the Kraken? Like they're in the playoffs right now, right?
The Kraken are, yeah, but the Urchin aren't.
I don't know. That's maybe sushi. You eat that. That is Urchin. UTM. It reminds me of UTM, right? Urchin tracking method or something.
That's where those of Google Analytics UTM parameters. I always wondered why they were called UTM, and that's why, because it's Urchin.
So Google didn't name them. Urchin named them.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
So that code has been around for, what is it, like almost 20 years.
Oh, yeah. No, nearly.
That's great. Whoever that, congrats to that development team. Your code's been around for that long. That's fantastic. And think of how many websites your code is running on.
Right.
Like
so
a
many.
lot. Anyways, it's been working well, but times have changed. Websites have evolved, I'd say.
There's apps now.
I was watching hockey, like in a remote place on an app, right? And I can do it on a website too. Like stream stuff, you can book stuff, all your finances. Like so much can you do on a website now. It's not just a place to go get information. So they needed a better infrastructure to run analytics on those websites. So that's why GA4 is coming out. But before we get to that, you want to talk about the dates?
Sure. Yeah. So as of July 1st, this July, the free version, I guess, of Universal Analytics, that we call it, free or standard, is stopping processing. So that was, I know, pushed back a bit from a previous date, but now July 1 is officially the date, and it is not being pushed back. So we better probably make the switch. This summer, July 1, 2023.
That's Canada Day.
We should have counted, I guess, how many days. That is Canada Day.
Yeah.
Yes. And then...
So stop processing. That means that...
So it means your data will still be available.
Right.
For, I think it was 6 months it's available within the UI. But it will not process. So if you're on your website, you're going to be sending some of those hits to there.
Yeah.
It's going to not go anywhere. It basically goes
Where are they
to
going to go?
Black hole. And just into it's an empty
the Kraken.
hole. The Kraken will just take it up. So, nowhere. So they will no longer be processed, and you won't be able to see that in your...
So you'll lose all your
UI.
insight.
You would lose insight.
Like
yes,
new insight after July 1st.
You could use that for previous, but one thing is definitely to, which we'll talk about later, is you need to make sure your year-over-year stuff is maybe taken care of, or you migrate some of that data so you can keep that later. And then for GA360, if you're on that, that's July 1st, 2024. So you have a whole nother year to implement your Google Analytics 4 instance.
That's the one that costs money.
That is.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the one that currently costs money, but the GA4 could be in a standard version, which is free, and then has new payment structure too for the Google Analytics 4.
So regardless of which version you have, and your stop date's listed here, July 1st, whether it's this year or next year. Then you get 6 months to access your data, and then they're going to shut down the UI or the API and all that.
Right.
So you won't even be able to get the data.
So you want to get all of your data in a safe place.
So if you're concerned now, that's why we're doing this. I'm going to make sure that you're ready for this sunset. Okay, sun's going down. All right. Down a little bit. One of the big differences between UA 360 and GA4 standard is GA4 standard now gives you a BigQuery export.
Yes.
So if you were a previous 360 customer, you have the option to export your data to BigQuery. And I don't think they're not selling any more 360 UA 360 licenses. So even if you don't have it already, you cannot get it anymore. You can't use this as a backdoor to export your data, which is kind of unfortunate because it's a great way to get all your data out. They give you 13 months of backfill. And then GA standard, it never had the BigQuery export, but GA4 standard will have the BigQuery export. So if you don't have this BigQuery export enabled, whether you're on the free version or you just didn't turn it on for 360, if you are a 360 customer, you can turn it on. You get 13 months of backfill. That's a great way to get your data into a data warehouse. Start stockpiling it like we have it listed here. But you definitely want to get some basic metrics, some traffic volume, page views, sessions, whatever it may be, out of Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, before it's sunset and gone.
Where should I store that then?
Well, BigQuery, of course.
So just connect to the API and put it in BigQuary?
We love BigQuery around here.
What if I just kept it in like Sheets? Had the Sheets connector.
Yeah, you could have. The Sheets connector might use a Universal Analytics connector.
Oh, and that could break.
So that will stop as well. So you pretty much need to copy that data, probably this day and age, to some cloud data warehouse.
Okay.
We like BigQuery, but if you want to use Amazon, Azure, it doesn't matter. Snowflake.
Right. I bet format is important then too, right? Or does that matter?
Format is going to be structured as in JSON delimited. So each line is a record of JSON, or it's going to be a comma separated values of all your columns.
It just moved again. We're getting closer.
The sun. You ever notice how during the day the sun just kind of sits there, but then when it starts touching that horizon, it just. I guess you have that reference, and it just goes faster and faster.
We're getting
close. We're getting to that point now.
We're getting close.
A couple months left. So ideally, you want to run a parallel implementation for 1 year. So best case scenario, you should have turned on GA4 July 1
last year,
2022. So
for non GA360
correct
people.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Yes. So if you're on a 360 contract, good news. You've got a couple months to get that GA4 property up and running and collecting side by side with your UA to make sure that you can trust that data and you can have year-over-year comparisons when it's sunset using GA4. But the most important thing is that if you've been using Universal Analytics for all this time, since 2005 potentially, and now they're completely changing the way that they're collecting that data, you want some trust in that data. So you definitely want to see, do my page views match from system A versus system B? So it's a good thing to run a parallel implementation. If you're not doing the BigQuery thing, you want to do API. The API is a great way to get your data out and put it into spreadsheets if there's not too much, or databases, SQL Server, BigQuery, Azure, Redshift, whatever it may be. And then finally, some people might have Looker Studio, you figure?
Or any connector, I guess, opposed to the to Google Analytics. But yes, definitely. Looker Studio, formerly Data Studio.
Right. And if they have this connector, what happens?
I guess it'll just stop. Once it communicating after 6 months, though, since you have access to your data, likely after the 6 months of the expiry, your data might not be updated. Well, you should notice that your data is probably not updating your reports anyways, having new data, but you would have access to your reports backdated. So yeah.
So there'll be gentle reminders, like
there will be. You're going to notice, or something looks broken. You're like, why isn't this working? Well, it's because
stop processing data on July 1st.
Right. And then the API data retrieval, like you can go back years, right? It does not matter.
It does not matter.
So get all that stuff now.
Yeah.
And then you're make sure you can go back years. So even if you want to do year over year, as long as your event model stayed the same or something similar within Google Analytics 4, which I guess we didn't touch on that. The event model has changed slightly where it's event-based.
Yeah, I think that's coming up when the sun goes down.
Oh, okay.
Coming up, the sun's going down.
So we got to know what's going on. So that would be an interesting thing to look at year over year when you have a new event model, possibly. So to know what's
good
compare
point.
Apples to apples.
Good point.
It might be a little different.
You might be wanting more out of your analytics with GA4, but you still want to have those, those basic metrics of page views and total events and conversions. You want those to line up to make sure that you haven't missed anything in your implementation, even though you're trying to improve it. The API does have some limitations. That's why BigQuery export is the best way to get your data, but it'll more than satisfy.
Right. Like if you put so many dimensions and metrics in there, you could get sampling. So if you stay within some of those limits, you might be okay.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, really?
Well,
okay. Sun's going down more, but G4 can be cheaper than UA, like UA 360, right? Like,
geez, it's kind of opposite of what we're seeing in the world today. Something is actually cheaper with a new product.
Food is going up, but I guess GA4 is going down in some ways. So that's cool. So maybe more approachable for certain people. Like it's based more on like the actual hit volume, right? Or how many events that are sent?
Yeah, it's more pay per use.
Okay.
So my understanding was UA 360, basically $150,000 US per year. And that got you like 25 million hits to collect. So if you're only doing 3 million hits, you're wasting a lot of that 150,000, so to speak. So they believe they made it more fair by lowering the price to a minimum of like, I think it's 50,000.
Okay.
And then as you get more than your minimum hits, you pay more, but you pay more per or less per hit.
Okay, so it scales with your business, basically,
exactly.
or your traffic.
So if you get up to 100 million hits, it's less charge per hit than you were if you only had 25 million.
Okay.
So
if I had a bot, like all of a sudden, it could cost more. So I would want to find that.
Yeah, you want to have some bot
different
detection.
Impact. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. It's getting low here.
Uh-oh. We're even lower. What's this? What are these random things?
Adobe. Is that Adobe Kraken?
I don't know. Yeah, or analytics.
We thought we'd mention it, but there are alternatives to Google Analytics. Adobe's one of them that we're familiar with. And I've actually worked a bit with, I think it's called Piwik Pro.
I don't know. I've actually never heard of that one.
Yeah, and Plausible Analytics. Those are really good alternatives that do very similar things to Google Analytics. And they're worth mentioning because you may not want to continue with GA4 for whatever reason. You might have done a study on it and you don't want to. So those are some other ones to look at as well. We have a full team here at Adswerve that specializes in Adobe Analytics.
Right.
The Adobe suite of products as well. So.
Yeah, so it's a time for change. You can consider change,
Yeah.
Now is the time to reevaluate what your priorities are and
exactly
what things make sense to you.
Yeah, like websites have changed. That's definite. And if GA4 doesn't meet your needs for whatever reason, you can have a look at these ones as well. again, it would be the same principles. You want to do a parallel implementation,
Right.
get them going so that you can trust the data. You know that you're not missing anything when you moved over. So it's the same thing as GA4. They're just different products.
All right. Some new things though are in GA4.
Like what?
Like Google Signals. Like, so that's like a new thing where, in this like cookieless world that we're kind of experiencing, or things that are not able to get to the granularity, potentially of your customers. Signals is kind of a thing that can try to help bridge like a lot of Google products together to kind of have audiences that are almost determined by some modeling. So it's kind of a unique thing. So it's kind of set up for you, which is nice, and it's kind of like similar to the audience building now. You can have some things where I've heard Google say you don't need a data scientist anymore, but that's for a few things. And I think that's as long as you're in that Google ecosystem entirely.
Yeah.
But if you want to bring in other data from other places, you still will need our data scientists, right?
Pretty nice offering though, GA4 with some
it's pretty
audience
cool.
building.
It's actually really cool.
In.
The fact that you can just like take like a 7-day users and find like lookalike audiences and just push that to another platform is really cool.
But within Google.
Within Google,
yes. Google Ads, right?
Yeah, like Google Ads. But
you couldn't push them to Facebook.
You couldn't push it to Facebook, no.
Other social media.
Not yet anyways. Maybe there'll be some
YouTube.
connectors.
Probably YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know that answer, but that would be really cool. So anything within that Google ecosystem, definitely those audiences are there. And then, you can build that automatically. And within GA4 too, you can like build your own lookalike audiences and then push them, which is really cool.
Nice. So find more people that like your current customers.
Yes.
What business wouldn't want that?
Exactly. And then do the actions on your site, and then you can measure it and push it. But the data model changed too. So it's event based now. So was it
before?
Session based? It's like
session based?
Was it to start with a session?
Yeah. That's correct.
Anyway. So this now I think it starts with an event.
So before it was like when they defined a session as your session end when you went over midnight, or you hadn't been active for like half an hour or something. So then you had a bunch of activity or hits, they'd call them, within the session, and they'd all be bundled together in that one session. But now they've thrown that out and event-based?
Yeah, so it's like event-based, my understanding. It's like there's an event that starts it. So everything's an event.
So it's like a hit.
It's like a hit.
It's just not packaged within a session.
Right. But it can be batched. So like these events can be batched. If you have multiple that are taking place, they can be batched on your site. So it's you don't have to plan that. It does it automatically.
The batching?
Batch, yes.
Oh, wow.
Automatically. So if there's a bunch of hits, so it just tries to be more effective, I think, in saving your bandwidth.
Nice. And SGTM, well, we're familiar with that. So is our audience.
Right.
We've already done
GTM, yeah.
We've done the
so that is available. Actually, you could use Universal Analytics with server-side GTM as well and send there. But typically, when we've set up stuff, we will do GA4, Google Analytics 4, as the conduit to server-side GTM, and then from there, you could actually, if you wanted to do your parallel analysis from before, you could actually have one GA4 hit, go and send to Universal Analytics and GA4 at the same time, and split it off to kind of understand your. Just kind of interesting. So you could have done that previously to kind of keep your with your model.
That is very interesting.
But now it's pretty much going do Google Analytics 4, use the server-side GTM, and then Google Signals, I think, is also coming to server-side GTM. We heard just in the next couple weeks. So that was one of the things that server-side GTM wasn't capable with Google Signals before, but it is.
So coming. It can tap into those audiences.
That's right. Yep.
Nice. So then. Oh, yeah, it opens up a whole nother world. So,
all right. Does this mean the sun is down?
Well,
not quite yet.
You've got 2 months, so we're not.
Okay.
The sun's never going to go down in this presentation because there's still time left, right?
All right.
We're here to help people. Now. Like the best time to start for the free standard version was last July, but the second best time is today. So.
And you still have a year, at least over a year and 2 months for if you're on GA360. Yeah. So get it in place and get your year-over-year data.
Yeah, so we've talked about a few of these topics, in our vlog here. Number one, GA4 being the source of truth. So if you're planning to upgrade or migrate to GA4, you want to have trust in that data. So you want to run that parallel implementation. You want to be able to compare year over year to see that, well, let's say your traffic went up or down. You want to make sure it's not a system collection problem. You know, you want to be able to trust that number. So you want GA4 to be your source of truth. And then what about number 2 here? What do you think?
Migrating analytical systems. What does that mean?
What do you mean? It means taking one analytical system and moving to another.
So, I see, yeah. So, are you fully migrating, or are we actually just starting new? Because we're actually starting fresh.
Well, I mean, we're calling it migrating, but you don't have to go to GA4 like we mentioned. You can go to Adobe. There's other things. You can build one from scratch these days. The libraries out there are way better than they were in 2005. So
right. So I guess it's like you're making it's really new because like you don't in that UI you have no back data from your previous because it is like a new instance. So
correct.
Yes, you're moving, but it's not a full migration per se. Like you're actually like have all the that's what we'll emphasize. Get your data in BigQuery or somewhere else because that's the only way to actually look at this in a cohesive kind of thing from year over year and even years past.
Right. And
it's brand new.
Yeah. You might have a project or analytical task or someone wants to know the answer of how was our traffic 5 years ago? Well, you want to have that data when it's shut down. So.
Right.
And then finally, we've done a webinar on Adobe Analytics tips and tricks. So if you want to check out Adobe Analytics, you can scan number 3 QR code and it'll take you to that webinar.
Yeah, I have to check that one out. I've not seen it yet.
It's pretty good. Charles.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, Charles did that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Good speaker.
Check that out.
Very knowledgeable. Think of the spin he's done. He was all Google for so many years, and then now he's really tapped into Adobe as well. So, great resource to know the pros and cons of each system.
He knows each in depth really
which is
cool.
That's the type of guy you want to know when you're asking, like, which one is better for me when you're trying to answer that question. Which website analytical system should I use?
Yeah.
So,
well, I know what I'm doing tonight.
Watching the Kraken?
No. I'm going to watch the Adobe Analytics. Kraken are playing, though, tonight.
They're not. They played last night.
Oh yeah?